was your overall take of the new Doctor Strange movie that came out last week?
Well, if I have to be honest, it was a movie that caught me off guard. It was a movie that, I wasn't necessarily expecting it to go in the direction that it did, even though Sam Raimi, the director, kind of insinuated it was going to go down a darker path, a little bit more on the, horrific background. I'm not trying to give any spoilers. In my personal opinion, I'd probably rate it an 8 out of 10. I would say that the characters that were introduced, the character development that was introduced, um, the main protagonist and antagonist, while at the same time creating comic book accuracy storylines, was very well done. I think that the development of Doctor Strange and America Chavez, and again, if those of you that don't know who these characters are, it's been out for a couple of days now, so I'm doing my best not to spoil anything. The plot was great. The villain, or like I said, the antagonist, was absolutely incredible, and I thought that everything that was discussed, while trying to maintain the integrity of what it is the multiverse is for me as a comic book fan, was just very thought out, and I thought that it was done in a very efficient way without kind of like dramatizing how to go and bring in other characters. It made perfect sense. I thought that the villain was very well explained within the reasoning as to why they are the way that they are, and just so much was just expressed and explained in this movie to kind of put phase 4 on the map, and then future phases within Marvel to kind of make everybody just understand in the direction that they're going. So, Doctor Strange has always been one of those Avengers that you're always kind of like, well, what the hell does he even do other than magic? There's a lot of stuff that people don't understand the relevance and importance of his role in the Avengers, or just in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as he is the mythological protector of the multiverse. He is somebody that kind of just guides all magic to make sure that it is, I don't know, protected right. It's, people are in the what people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. People aren't acting up or, going out of control with powers or other magic. And I really, really appreciated the direction that Sam Raimi went in. I think that that darker aspect of the movie was needed. I think that persona of that villain was very well drawn up in a way that people can appreciate, while at the same time understand, like, damn, this was a very different pace that Marvel went with, but it was a pace that I felt was just needed. And I felt that things were explained very well, and I was very happy with it. And I look forward to future projects, and hopefully Sam Raimi can come back and film a couple of more Marvel movies. And if he gets lucky, if we get lucky, maybe we do Spider-Man 4. But the Multiverse of Madness, definitely an incredible movie. And I think that Sam Raimi deserves a whole lot of credit for what he's been able to do.
Kev, I have a pretty similar sentiment when it comes to this new Doctor Strange movie. I thought the first Doctor Strange movie that came out just a couple years ago, I thought it was largely successful. It kind of lived up to the persona of Doctor Strange. It's a very kind of strange, kind of like it's a different type of superhero movie, just based on really just kind of like the mystical and the magical arts that it presents with that character. And I thought they pulled it off very well uh, in the Doctor Strange movie that came out a couple years ago. And I think they did a pretty solid job once again with this one. And like you said, with Sam Raimi coming into the fold, with this being his first Marvel produced movie, I thought the way in the direction that he went with this movie, I thought it worked out very well. Now, before I really kind of dive into like my analysis, I'm looking at this from a standalone movie perspective, not kind of like looking at this from like where like Marvel has kind of led up to this point, like all of like the background, because I know there's been a lot of background lead up specifically in regards to Wanda, because really a large portion of this film is kind of it kind of circulates around Wanda's role, and I'll dive into that into a second, but this is primarily just going to be like from my perspective as just a standalone film review. So the thing that I liked about there's a couple of things that I like about this movie. First of all, I like the fact that to me the pacing of this movie I thought was actually really well, because the one thing that I think Marvel movies have done in the past when it comes to the individual superhero movies, they don't really hold a lot of weight as far as just the individual movie itself, because when it comes down to Marvel, really it's all based on the lead up to Avengers movies. And usually the way that I've always seen it is the better movies that come from Marvel are mostly the Avengers movie. Now, granted, you can make specific points about maybe like some of the Spider-Man movies that have come out that are pretty good. You can maybe make the case that some of the Captain America movies are pretty good. Like one like my particular favorites is probably like the Captain America Civil War. I thought that was actually a pretty good film as a standalone film for Captain America. And I think in this specific instance, I thought that Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I thought that this was a pretty solid film from beginning to end. And I think the route that Sam Raimi went with this film, I thought was kind of accurate based on what they did with Wanda. And the thing that was kind of interesting about Wanda is they did a very good job in explaining the motivation behind what Wanda was doing in the first. And it really has to do with just like her perception of an alternate universe where she's with her children and she just enjoys their presence, but it's not her actual universe. It's in an alternate universe, and she's trying to essentially live in that type of universe, trying to focus on these dark arts that she was very focused on. Overall, like I thought they did a very good job in how they built Wanda. They actually made her a very good antagonist. And I thought the way that she kind of carried herself, she was very dark in this movie, and the way that she was able to handle whatever sort of foes that she went up against. I mean, she was a savage. And it took Doctor Strange, kind of took him to bend the rules a little bit when it comes to, the mystical arts that he kind of holds himself to. And it was quite a battle between Doctor Strange and Wanda, at the end of the movie. Um, like I said, I thought the pacing was very good in this movie. I thought really, Wanda was really kind of a big standout from this movie. I thought Doctor Strange, as just an individual character in this movie, um, took some chances, and it got a little bit dark, like Kevin alluded. This was kind of more of a darker movie, just based on the fact of really kind of the dark art aspect of this movie that Wanda was really pursuing to kind of achieve, you know, being able to be with her kids in this alternate universe. And it kind of gave me like a little bit of an Inception vibe, just based off of like what was done in that movie, where it's like there's a specific scene in Inception where there are people that go to this, I guess this office or whatever, and their dream state is what they actually want. Like that's the life that they really live, but their actual life is kind of a nightmare. And that's what it kind of gave me. Um, it gave me a very similar uh type of feel when it came to Wanda in this. Now, I do have some criticisms with this. And Kevin, you may understand where I'm coming from with this. I think the one thing that, granted, this is a superhero movie, so take it with a grain of salt. I think the over reliance of CGI is becoming an issue, because I understand there's a time and a place when it comes to using CGI. I think there are points in time where a lot of these superhero movies are too reliant on CGI, because just some of the shots, granted, I mean, you know, the imagery that they present with the CGI, I mean, it's great, but you could just tell like it's missing that sort of depth that past superhero movies used to have. And I know this is kind of like a different type of movie, because um there are points in time where you're kind of traveling into different universes and they have different looks, and I understand the imagery associated with that. It requires CGI, but it comes at a cost. Like there have been a lot of superhero movies that I've looked in the past. You could look at some of the Batman movies that have come out. You could say, granted, that's DC, but you could look at like Batman Begins, The Dark Knight. They used actual city sets where it was actually shot in a city. Most of Doctor Strange is shot in a studio. it's predominantly CGI. And I think that's one thing that kind of detracts from this movie. Granted, the imagery is fine. It just misses the depth when it comes to the actual setting that they're portraying. Like I said, it's a superhero movie, so you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt.